Hey there. So today I am here in San Diego. My family and I are visiting. It feels so great to be back and visit here. We lived here for 15 years. We actually had all of our kids here, and a few years ago we made the move from California to Utah, and we are so happy in Utah. We do still love San Diego, and today I'm going to share with you some reasons why people actually regret moving to Salt Lake City and why they regret moving to Utah. And I had this fantastic conversation while I was sitting on the beach with some friends. We're sitting on a, beach blanket as we're looking out at the beautiful, beach, and we're watching the surfers and watching our kids in the waves. And they were saying, well, and there were actually a couple of my friends that said, I actually lived in Utah for a couple of years, and man, I'm so glad I don't live there anymore. So today I'm going to share with you why some people regret making a move to Salt Lake and, specifically Utah. And we're going to hop into it right now. Mariah here. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if this is your very first time here. I'm a licensed and active real estate agent in the Salt Lake City, Utah area, and this channel is literally everything you need to know about eating, working, playing, sleeping, and living in the Salt Lake City, Utah area. If that is of interest to you, consider subscribing down below and make sure you tap that bell for notifications so you're notified every week we drop a new video. We hear from people like you all the time who are looking to make a move, who are looking to relocate or buy or sell a property in Utah, and we absolutely love it. So if you're thinking about making a move in a week, in a month, or even a year from now, feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, and let's chat and see how we can help you out. So like I said, my family and I are here in San Diego this week, and we're sitting out on the beach blanket, and I'm talking to some different friends and neighbors that we have had, here all the years that we've lived here. And we start talking about pros and cons and all the different things of living here in San Diego, living, really in Salt Lake, and why people regret moving to Salt Lake. So, number one, first and foremost, is the weather. Yes, the weather. I feel like you cannot mention, moving into Salt Lake without mentioning something about the weather. Now, some people actually love it. Some people love the weather. They love the distinct four seasons. And when I was having these conversations with some friends, they were like, oh, I remember when I lived in Utah and I love the fall there. Like the fall is so gorgeous. And some people mention, oh, they love those magical summer nights where it stays light super long in the summer. And those, just really those distinct four seasons. Some of them love skiing and snowboarding, others did not. However, like I said, with those four distinct seasons, wintertime, even though Utah has what they call a mild winter, it's not like one of these, Canadian winters or Minnesota winters. It is relatively a mild winter. So, but for some people, that mild winter is even a little too cold and a little too long. So, for example, this last winter, it was cold and it was very snowy. It hit all sorts of records. And for some people, they went, this is a deal breaker. I am out of Salt Lake. I cannot shovel one more driveway. I refuse to do, I refuse to do snow anymore. So for, number one reason why people regret moving to Utah is simply that weather piece. And it's a big one because it affects a lot of different things. I know here in San Diego, most things are outdoors. In Salt Lake, you're not going to have a lot of indoor, you're not going to have a lot of outdoor activities during the winter time simply because it's snowing, but everything moves indoors. So if you are super into sports and recreation, you're going to have a lot of indoor activities and a lot of opportunities to do that. Tennis, swimming, soccer, you name it, everything just goes indoor, but that weather plays a huge factor in that. Why people regret moving to Utah is the air quality. Yes, the air quality. Now, something to be said about the air quality and everything, there are different pockets in and around Salt Lake where you are going to experience more of the inversion, which is kind of that smoggy air that will sit in that Utah, really in that Salt Lake Valley, but it will blow in and it blows out. And it's the inversion, the air quality is not always bad. Again, depending on where you are in Salt Lake, it can be better, it can be worse. And depending on the time of year, it usually happens in the winter time. So that air quality is a big one. Going along with that too is the dryness. Because Utah is a desert, there it's very, very dry. Like I said, I am shooting this in San Diego today. And my 10-year-old daughter, as we were getting ready to go to the beach, and she's like, Mommy, I have not put on chapstick one time. I have not even put on any lotion on my hands. It just feels so good here, which, depending on where you are, like I said, that air quality and that dryness factor, some people regret moving to Utah because they're like, my eyes are dry, my hands are dry, my lips are dry, the air quality, that, different things like that can be a major factor and really important for you to know. And I say this in most of my videos, but if you're thinking about moving to Salt Lake, I always say, come on out, check it out, because it'll give you a good idea of, hey, you know what? The dryness actually doesn't bother me. Or, hey, you know what? I did see the air quality. It can be moderate, can be whatever. But where I'm thinking about living, it's really not affected there. So those different things, just things to be aware of. And I always, always recommend you come out before making the move, so that if some of these different regrets, they might be a regret, but they might not, they may not even be a factor for you. Moving right along to the next one, let's talk about professional sports teams. Yes, professional sports teams. In Utah, we have the Utah Jazz, and we also have a soccer team, which is the Real Salt Lake. In terms of football teams, in terms of baseball teams, I've had some people that have reached out that have said, Mariah, I'm moving from Texas. I'm thinking about Salt Lake, but I'm super concerned that there are, I want a baseball team. I really, I want that professional football team that's there. You are not going to see that. Depending on, I know there are a lot of sports enthusiasts in Salt Lake and around the Salt Lake area. Some of them go to Las Vegas to see games, some of them go to California, and people travel around for professional sporting, events a lot. One thing that is really, really big in Utah is the college people, the college sports, the collegiate sports. People rally around those college sports like nothing else, in terms of football, in terms of basketball, in terms of baseball, volleyball, a lot of different sports. People really, really rally around those collegiate sports. So even though there are not a lot of the professional teams here, you are going to still see a lot of loyalty and also a lot of support for those college sports. So this was another one that I actually had not thought about, but like I said, as I'm sitting on my beach blanket and I'm looking out at the ocean, one of my friends said, I remember when I lived in Utah, one of the things I did not like about that is the distance it took to get from one major city to the next major city. And she's like, you've got that I-15 freeway that runs right through Salt Lake. And she goes, in California, I love it because there's, I-5, and then there's just there's so many different freeways that are in California. You've got the 101, you've got 5, and you got all these different freeways. And she's like, in Salt Lake, I feel like you've got the 15. I'm like, well, what about all the ones that are going east to west, and all the ones that are going through the canyons and stuff? She's like, I really don't count those. So some of, the distance to get to some of the major cities, it does take more time. So if you are in Salt Lake, a lot of people in Salt Lake, they love going down to St. George, which is about 3.5 hours south of Salt Lake City. And then if you are going up north, it does take time to get from those major cities. So keep that in mind as well. Number 5, let's talk about the cost of living. Yes, cost of living compared to somewhere like here in San Diego is, a lot of people that are moving from California to Utah, they still feel like they're getting a bargain. Honestly, I've had so many clients that have moved from California to Salt Lake, and they go, oh my goodness, I get a yard and I can water the yard, and just so many different things with the cost of living. However, the cost of living has gone up dramatically over the years. And for what you used to be able to get 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15, 20, compared to what you're able to get now is considerably different. So cost of living has gone up. And so some people, they feel like, hey, I moved to Salt Lake, as cost of living's a little bit less than some of the surrounding areas. So there's different trade-offs with like the winter or different things like that. However, some people are, it's a turnoff now living in Salt Lake because they're going, oh, I'm having to pay this much for this and this much for this. So cost of living has gone up. Number 6, some people regret moving to Utah simply because of the political climate. Yes, the political climate, it is more of a conservative state, a red state. If that aligns with your political views and beliefs, great. If not, just know that kind of going into it. There are a lot of people who are very open-minded, and there are a lot of people who are not conservative, but just know that Utah is a conservative state and many people want to do everything they can to keep it that way. So just know that if you're thinking about making that move. Number 7, this one was an interesting one. And I remember when we moved to, from California to Utah, we thought, oh, this was a little bit different. When we were here in California, a lot of like your neighbors, your community, your church groups, all of that really end up becoming a lot of your family. Whereas in Utah, a lot of people have family there. So sometimes, this is not always, but some people regret moving to Utah because they get there and they're thinking, okay, I'm super excited to be friends with all these different people that I'm, going to be associating with. But a lot of those people already have family there or the friends that they grew up with. And so sometimes for some people, they've said it's harder to make friendships. It's harder to, have relationships with people just because they kind of already have their little network. They already have their community. They already have their family there. So it can be a little bit more difficult to break into those different circles simply because a lot of people already have family in Salt Lake. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of why some people are making the move from here to from here in California to Salt Lake. We talked about cost of living, we talked about taxes, talked about really weather, climate, livability. And if you are thinking about making a move from anywhere really to the Salt Lake City, Utah area, my team and I hear from people like you all the time, and we absolutely love it. So if you're thinking about making a move in a week, in a month, or even a year from now, feel free to give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, and it would be our absolute pleasure to connect with you. Take care and have a great one. Bye.